Tom and Maria had always dreamed of a quiet place far away from the busy city. Both of them worked hard every day, saving money little by little. Their dream was to buy a small cabin in the woods, a place where they could relax, breathe fresh air, and feel peaceful. After many years of saving and waiting, their dream finally came true. They found a small cabin hidden among tall pine trees. It was not a big house, but it was cozy and warm. The wooden walls had a soft smell of the forest, and the windows looked out onto a small clearing where wildflowers grew in the spring. The cabin was surrounded by nature's calm, and the sound of birds singing made it feel like a safe place. Tom and Maria felt happy when they first stepped inside. They imagined spending weekends there, sitting by the fire, cooking meals together, and walking in the woods. It was their special place, away from the noise and rush of city life. But there was one thing they learned soon after moving in. The neighborhood where the cabin was located had strict rules. A group called the Homeowners Association, or HOA, watched over everything. The HOA made sure all the houses looked nice and followed certain rules about fences, gates, and paint colors. Tom didn't want to worry about these rules. He thought, if we keep everything neat, no one will have any problems. Maria agreed, but she noticed something that needed fixing right away. The cabin's old gate was broken. It hung crooked on its hinges, making it hard to close. It looked tired and worn out, just like the cabin before they fixed it up. Maria knew that fixing the gate would make the entrance safer and prettier. It was important to her because it showed they cared about their home. One bright Saturday morning, Maria took down the old gate. She planned to replace it with a new one made of strong wood. She wanted to paint it a warm, friendly color that would welcome visitors and make the cabin look loved. Tom helped her. They measured the space carefully and worked together to build the new gate. It was hard work, but they laughed and talked as they worked. Maria painted the gate a soft green, a color that blended well with the trees. While Maria was painting, she did not notice the car slowly stopping near their driveway. A woman stepped out. She was a neighbor from nearby, someone Maria had seen around but never talked to. The woman's face was serious, and her eyes watched Maria closely. She wore a plain dress and had her arms crossed tightly, like she was ready to argue. Maria felt a little nervous but smiled politely. "Good morning," Maria said. "I'm fixing the gate. It was broken, so I wanted to replace it." The woman didn't smile back. Instead, she said, "You know, you're not allowed to change the gate without permission. The HOA has rules." Maria nodded, trying to be calm. "I didn't know. I just wanted to fix what was broken. I'll check with them if I need to." The woman didn't answer. She turned and walked away, her steps quick and firm. Maria felt a small worry. She wasn't sure what would happen next. That evening, Tom and Maria sat by the fire inside the cabin. They talked about the woman and the gate. Tom said, "Maybe we should ask the HOA just to be safe. We don't want any trouble." Maria agreed but also felt sad. "I only wanted to make our home better. Why would someone get upset about that?" Tom held her hand and said softly, "Sometimes people get scared of change. But we'll do the right thing, no matter what." The next morning, Maria went to the mailbox and found a letter from the HOA. It said they needed to fill out a form and wait for approval before changing the gate. Maria showed the letter to Tom. They decided to do what the HOA asked, even though it felt slow and frustrating. But before they could send the form, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while Maria was finishing the gate's paint, she saw the same woman from before walking toward their cabin again. This time, the woman had a phone in her hand. Maria felt her heart beat faster. The woman spoke loudly, so Maria could hear. "I'm calling the police. They're breaking the rules." Maria looked around and saw Tom coming out of the cabin. He saw the woman on the phone and frowned. "What's going on?" he asked Maria quietly. Before Maria could answer, 2 police cars arrived. Officers stepped out and approached the cabin. Maria and Tom were shocked. They didn't know why the police were there or what the woman had said. The woman pointed at Maria and Tom, explaining quickly to the officers. Maria tried to stay calm and said, "We are fixing our gate. We did not mean to break any rules." The officers listened carefully, asking questions. Tom and Maria explained everything, showing the new gate and the letter from the HOA. The officers looked thoughtful. After a moment, they spoke kindly, "It looks like you are trying to do the right thing. We will check with the HOA, but for now, there's no problem." Maria felt relief wash over her. Tom smiled at her, squeezing her hand gently. The woman, who had called the police, stood silently. Her confident face was softer now, and her eyes avoided theirs. Later, as the police left, Tom and Maria looked at their new gate. It was strong and fresh, ready to protect their little home. They didn't know what would come next, but they knew one thing for sure: their cabin was worth fighting for. The morning sun was shining softly through the tall trees, casting long shadows over the little cabin and the freshly painted gate. Maria was outside, putting away her paintbrushes and cleaning the tools after finishing the last coat on the gate. She felt proud. The gate looked beautiful, sturdy, and welcoming. Tom was inside, unpacking some boxes of supplies they had brought from the city. Their weekend plans were simple: enjoy the quiet, cook dinner together, and rest from the busy week at work. Suddenly, Maria noticed a car slowly driving down the narrow road that led to their cabin. It was a small, neat car, the kind you might see in the city. The car stopped near the driveway, and a woman stepped out. Maria did not recognize her well, but she had seen her in the neighborhood before. The woman looked serious and seemed unhappy. Maria smiled gently and waved. "Good morning," she called. The woman did not smile back. Instead, she walked up the driveway with her arms crossed and her face tight. When she reached Maria, she said in a sharp voice, "What are you doing to the gate? You know you can't change anything without approval from the HOA." Maria stayed calm. "I'm fixing the gate because it was broken and dangerous. I wanted to make it safe for us. We didn't mean to cause any problems." The woman shook her head. "You should have asked permission first. These rules are for everyone's safety and order." Maria nodded slowly. "I understand. I will check with the HOA office soon. But for now, we just wanted to fix what was broken." The woman looked Maria up and down, then turned and walked back toward her car without saying another word. Maria watched the car drive away, feeling a small knot in her stomach. She wondered if this woman would cause more trouble. Tom came outside just then, wiping his hands on a cloth. "Who was that?" he asked. Maria explained everything. Tom frowned. "We should have sent the form to the HOA before starting, but we didn't know. Let's fix it now." Maria agreed, but she was worried. "I hope this doesn't cause a fight. We just want to enjoy our home." Days passed, and the tension grew. The woman, whose name they later learned was Mrs. Gray, seemed to watch them more closely each day. She spoke to other neighbors and seemed to gather support. One afternoon, Maria was outside, trimming some bushes near the gate, when she heard a knock on the door. It was a polite knock, but Maria felt nervous. She opened the door to find 2 police officers standing there. "Good afternoon," said one officer. "We received a call about an unauthorized change to your property. Can you tell us what happened?" Maria invited them inside the small porch area. "We replaced the old gate because it was broken and unsafe. We did not get permission first because we didn't know we needed to." The officers listened carefully as Maria explained. Tom came outside and joined the conversation. After a few questions, the officers looked at the gate and the cabin. One officer said kindly, "It looks like your gate is in good shape and does not harm anyone. But you should check with your HOA to avoid future problems. Maria nodded. We will do that. The officers thanked them and left. Maria and Tom closed the door, feeling a mix of relief and worry. They did not expect this to become so serious. That evening, Mrs. Gray came again. This time, she spoke directly to Tom. You don't understand, she said firmly. These rules keep the neighborhood safe and pretty. If everyone ignores them, it will become a mess. Tom nodded respectfully. We respect the rules and want to follow them. We just didn't know about the gate permission. We will fix that. Mrs. Gray looked at him for a long moment, then said, You'd better. The HOA will be watching. After she left, Maria and Tom sat down on the porch swing. Maria said softly, Why is she so angry with us? We just want to make our home better. Tom took her hand. Maybe she is afraid of change, or maybe she feels like we don't belong here. Maria looked puzzled. What do you mean? Tom sighed. Sometimes, people are suspicious when new families move in. They think they will change things too much. But that's not always true. Maria nodded slowly. She looked at the new gate, the trees, and the cabin. We do belong here. This is our home now. The next day, Tom called the HOA office to ask about the permission form. The woman on the phone was polite but clear. Yes, you need to submit the form and wait for approval, she said. If you need help, you can come to the office. Tom and Maria agreed to go the next week. Before then, the woman from the neighborhood visited again. This time, she was colder, less polite. You don't follow the rules, and now the police have been called, she said. You're making things difficult for everyone. Maria felt a wave of sadness. We are trying to do the right thing. The woman shook her head. I don't think you belong here. Maria's heart tightened. She wanted to say something, but Tom put his hand on her shoulder. Later that night, Tom and Maria talked quietly. Tom said, maybe we should try to show them who we really are. Not just cabin owners, but part of the community. Maria smiled weakly. Yes. Maybe if they see we care, things will change. They made a plan to meet some neighbors, to talk and listen. The cabin felt quiet again, but now it carried a new hope, a hope that the gate they built was not only protecting their home but could open doors to new friendships. The days after the police visit felt tense for Tom and Maria. Every time they stepped outside, they felt the eyes of their neighbors watching them closely. The quiet woods, which once brought peace, now seemed full of whispers and quiet judgments. Still, Tom and Maria were determined to make their cabin their true home. One bright afternoon, Maria was painting some flower pots by the porch when she heard the crunch of tires on the gravel road. She looked up and saw a familiar car, Mrs. Gray, slowly making its way toward the cabin again. Maria's heart beat faster. She wished the woman would just leave them alone. But Mrs. Gray parked her car near the driveway and stepped out, holding her phone tightly in her hand. Tom came outside, wiping sweat from his forehead. What now? He asked quietly. Before Maria could answer, Mrs. Gray approached with a firm step. You shouldn't have painted the gate without permission, she said sharply. This is against the rules, and I'm calling the police again. Tom's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. We are following the rules now. We will get approval for everything we do. Mrs. Gray did not seem to hear him. She raised her phone and pressed buttons quickly. Maria felt the color drain from her face. Within minutes, flashing lights appeared down the road. 2 police cars pulled up near the cabin, their engines quieting as the officers stepped out. Tom and Maria exchanged worried glances. The officers approached calmly. One of them, a tall man with kind eyes, spoke first. Good afternoon. We received a call about a gate being changed without permission. Tom nodded. Yes, ma'am. We replaced the old gate because it was broken. We are sorry if this caused trouble. Maria added softly, we didn't know about the permission rules before we started, but we want to do things right. The officers looked at the gate carefully. It was clear the gate was well made and safe. The second officer pulled out a small notebook and began writing. Mrs. Gray stood a few feet away, watching carefully, her arms crossed. After a moment, the first officer said, we will need to check with the HOA to see if there has been a complaint or a violation. Maria nodded. Please let us know if we need to fix anything. The officers then asked Mrs. Gray a few questions. She described the situation in a sharp tone, pointing at the cabin and the gate. Then, the unexpected happened. One officer turned to Mrs. Gray and asked gently, do you know who these people are? Mrs. Gray blinked in surprise. I know they live here. That's all. The officer looked at Tom and Maria with a soft smile. Are you two involved in the community? Do you work with the neighbors? Tom looked at Maria, then answered quietly, yes, we have been trying to help. We organize clean UPS and support local events. We want to make this place better for everyone. Maria added, we care about this neighborhood, and we want to be part of it. The officers exchanged a glance, then nodded. The tall officer said, thank you for sharing. It helps us understand the situation better. Mrs. Gray's confident face began to change. Her shoulders dropped slightly, and her eyes looked down. The police officers thanked everyone and explained that they would contact the HOA for more information. They said that for now, everything was fine as long as Tom and Maria worked with the HOA in the future. After the officers left, Tom and Maria felt a mix of relief and curiosity. They wanted to know more about Mrs. Gray's attitude and why she seemed so upset. Maria asked softly, why do you think she called the police? We haven't done anything wrong. Tom sighed. Sometimes, people get afraid when things change. Maybe she feels like she needs to protect the neighborhood in her own way. Maria nodded slowly. But calling the police twice? It feels more than just protection. Tom took her hand. Maybe she feels threatened, like we don't belong here. But that's not true. We do belong. That evening, they sat together on the porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. The new gate stood strong, a symbol of their home and the challenges they faced. Tom said, I think we need to show the neighbors who we really are. Not just people fixing a gate, but friends who want to help. Maria smiled gently. Yes. We can invite them to a meeting. Maybe if we talk and listen, things will get better. Tom agreed. It's time to build trust. As night fell, the cabin felt calm again, but Tom and Maria knew their journey was just beginning. The arrival of the police was not the end, it was a chance to start something new. After the police left, the quiet of the cabin felt heavier than before. Maria and Tom sat on their porch, thinking about what had just happened. The new gate, which they had worked so hard to build and paint, now seemed like a barrier not just for their home, but between them and the neighborhood. Tom broke the silence. We can't just wait for things to get better. We need to show everyone who we really are. Maria looked at him, her eyes full of hope. But how? They already think we're trouble. Tom smiled gently. We'll invite the neighbors for a meeting. We'll talk honestly and listen to their concerns. It's the only way. The next day, Tom and Maria went to the small community hall where many neighborhood meetings took place. They found a board with flyers about upcoming events and a list of neighbors' names and phone numbers. Tom took out a notebook and started writing. We'll call some neighbors and invite them over, he said. Maybe if we open up, they will open up too. Maria nodded. I want to start fresh. That evening, they began calling neighbors. Some answered politely, some ignored the call, and a few were curious. To their surprise, a few agreed to come. The night of the meeting arrived. Tom and Maria cleaned the cabin, set up chairs on the porch, and prepared simple snacks. The new gate stood open, welcoming everyone. Slowly, neighbors arrived. Some looked curious, some still unsure. Mrs. Gray appeared last, her face tight but her eyes softer than before. Tom welcomed everyone warmly. "Thank you all for coming. We want to be part of this community, and we know we've made mistakes. But we want to listen and learn." Maria added, "Our goal is to make this neighborhood better for everyone. We care about this place and you." The neighbors began to speak. Some shared worries about changes, others spoke about rules they thought were important. Mrs. Gray spoke too, her voice quieter. "We want to protect our homes," she said. "But maybe I was too quick to judge." Tom nodded. "We understand. Rules help keep order, but sometimes fear makes us forget kindness." Then, Tom and Maria shared their story. They told the neighbors about their hard work, the dream of owning the cabin, and their hope for peace and friendship. They spoke about the youth programs they planned to start and the community cleanups they wanted to organize. As they talked, something changed. The neighbors listened. The walls between them seemed to lower. Then, Maria said something that surprised everyone. "We want you to know who we really are." She reached into her bag and pulled out some papers. "We are not just cabin owners. We have worked for years in the city to help families, organize events, and support people in need. We want to bring that spirit here." The neighbors looked at each other in surprise. No one had expected this. Mrs. Gray's eyes widened. She whispered, "You're the people who started the community center downtown." Tom smiled. "Yes, that's us. We love helping people. We want to do the same here." A few neighbors nodded slowly. One man said, "We didn't know. We thought you were strangers." Maria smiled warmly. "We were strangers once. Now, we want to be neighbors." The mood shifted from suspicion to respect. The neighbors started asking questions about the programs and how they could help. Mrs. Gray looked at Tom and Maria, her face softening. "I'm sorry for calling the police. I didn't understand you before." Tom reached out his hand. "Thank you for saying that. We all want the same thing, a safe and happy community." The meeting ended with smiles and promises to work together. Tom and Maria felt their hearts lift. For the first time, they saw hope shining through the trees. As the neighbors left, Mrs. Gray stayed behind for a moment. "You surprised me," she said quietly. "Maybe this neighborhood needs more of your kind." Maria smiled. "We're here to stay." That night, Tom and Maria sat by the fire, feeling the warmth of more than just the flames. Tom said, "This is just the beginning. Together, we can make this place home." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "I believe it too." Outside, the gate stood open, a new symbol not of barriers, but of friendship and trust. After the meeting, the atmosphere in the neighborhood slowly began to change. Tom and Maria could feel it every time they stepped outside their cabin. The wary looks were replaced with nods and sometimes even smiles. The gate they had worked so hard to build was no longer a symbol of conflict but of new beginnings. That weekend, Tom and Maria decided to take the next step. They wanted to show the neighbors that their words were true, that they cared deeply about the community and were ready to help in any way they could. Maria spent the morning baking bread and cookies, wrapping them in simple brown paper bags. Tom gathered gardening tools, gloves, and bags for trash collection. They planned to organize a neighborhood cleanup day and invited everyone they could. When the morning of the cleanup arrived, Tom and Maria were ready early. They stood by their gate, holding signs that read, "Neighborhood Cleanup Join Us," and "Let's Keep Our Home Beautiful." One by one, neighbors began to arrive. Some came with gloves and bags, others brought children and pets. Mrs. Gray was there, holding a rake, her serious face softened by the fresh morning sun. Tom greeted everyone with a big smile. Thank you all for coming. Today is about working together to keep our neighborhood clean and beautiful. Maria added, we're happy to see so many of you here. Let's make this a fun day. The group split into teams. Some picked up trash along the roads, others trimmed overgrown bushes, and a few painted old fences that had faded over the years. As they worked, people began to talk and laugh. Stories were shared about the neighborhood's history, about the animals that roamed the woods, and about the best places to pick wild berries in the summer. Maria noticed Mrs. Gray working quietly nearby. She walked over and said softly, "Thank you for coming today." Mrs. Gray nodded. "I was wrong to be so quick to judge. You're showing us that you really care." Maria smiled warmly. "We want to be part of this community, not just live here." Tom joined them. "This is only the start. We want to organize more events, maybe a picnic, or a holiday gathering." Mrs. Gray looked thoughtful. "That sounds nice. Maybe I can help." By the end of the day, the neighborhood looked cleaner and brighter. The tired fences were fresh with new paint, the trash was gone, and the air smelled sweet with the smell of pine and flowers. Neighbors gathered near the cabin, enjoying cold drinks Maria had prepared. The mood was light and cheerful. A young couple who had been quiet all day approached Tom and Maria. "Thank you for organizing this," the woman said. "We didn't know how much we needed it." Tom smiled. "It's our pleasure. We believe when neighbors work together, anything is possible." As the sun began to set, the group said their goodbyes, promising to meet again soon. Later that night, Tom and Maria sat on their porch, watching the stars appear in the dark sky. Maria said, "Today felt like a new chapter." Tom nodded. "We're building bridges now. Not just gates." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "I think we belong here." Tom smiled softly. "I know we do." Just then, their phone rang. It was a call from the HOA office. Tom answered carefully. "Hello." The voice on the other end was friendly but official. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Lee. We wanted to inform you that your application for the gate replacement has been reviewed. We're pleased to inform you it has been approved." Maria's eyes widened in surprise. "That's wonderful news." Tom smiled. "Thank you so much." The officer continued, "We appreciate your cooperation and willingness to work with us. We look forward to seeing you at future meetings." Tom and Maria hung up, feeling a sense of victory. It wasn't just about the gate anymore, it was about acceptance. Maria looked at Tom with tears in her eyes. "We did it." Tom held her hand gently. "Together, we can face anything." As they closed the door and turned off the lights, the cabin seemed warmer than ever. Outside, the new gate stood tall, shining softly in the moonlight, a symbol not of separation, but of connection. With the gate officially approved by the HOA, Tom and Maria felt a new energy flowing through their little cabin and the neighborhood. The approval was more than just a piece of paper, it was a sign that their efforts to become part of the community were working. The cold looks and whispers were slowly being replaced by nods, greetings, and invitations. One morning, Maria woke up early and stood on the porch, breathing in the fresh, pine-scented air. The sunlight streamed through the trees, making the leaves sparkle like tiny jewels. It was a perfect day to start something new. Tom joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "I thought we could plant a small garden near the gate." Maria's face lit up. "That's a great idea. Flowers and plants will make it feel warm and welcoming." Together, they went to the local nursery to buy seeds and small plants, bright marigolds, cheerful daisies, and fresh green herbs. They wanted the garden to be a symbol of growth, friendship, and hope. Back at the cabin, they cleared a small area near the gate and began planting. As they worked, Mrs. Gray walked by, pausing to watch. "Need some help?" she asked quietly. Tom and Maria smiled. Yes, please. Mrs. Gray rolled up her sleeves and joined in. Neighbors walking by saw the three of them together and stopped, curious. Soon, a small crowd gathered, and more people offered to help. Maria laughed softly. Looks like our garden is growing faster than the plants. As the garden took shape, so did the friendships. The neighbors talked and shared stories about their families and dreams. Children ran around playing games while the adults planted and laughed. One afternoon, a young boy named Sam came up to Maria with a shy smile. "Thank you for making the neighborhood nice," he said softly. "I like the flowers." Maria knelt down to his level. "Thank you, Sam. We want everyone to feel happy here." The boy nodded, then ran off to join his friends. That evening, Tom and Maria invited some neighbors to their cabin for a small dinner. They cooked simple food: roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and warm soup. The porch was decorated with string lights, and the garden glowed softly in the twilight. As everyone gathered around the table, Tom stood and raised his glass. "Thank you all for coming. This cabin is more than just a house for us. It is a place where we want to build memories, friendships, and happiness." Maria added, "We are grateful for your support and kindness. Together, we can make this neighborhood a wonderful home for everyone." The neighbors smiled and clinked glasses. The night was filled with stories, laughter, and the soft sound of the wind in the trees. Days turned into weeks. The cabin and garden flourished. The gate, once a symbol of tension, was now a gateway to friendship. One morning, Tom found a small package on their porch. It was from Mrs. Gray. Inside was a handmade card with a simple message: "Thank you for showing me the true meaning of community." Tom and Maria felt their hearts swell with happiness. They had not only built a gate, they had built a home filled with love and trust. But life was not always easy. One day, an unexpected storm rolled in, bringing heavy rain and strong winds. The little garden was battered, and the gate shook under the force of the wind. Tom and Maria worked quickly to secure the gate and protect the plants. Neighbors came out to help, bringing tarps, tools, and warm blankets. After the storm passed, the neighborhood gathered to clean up and repair the damage. It was hard work, but the shared effort brought everyone even closer. Maria looked around at the faces of her neighbors, tired but smiling. "This is what community is," she said softly. "Helping each other through storms, both big and small." Tom nodded. "And together, we can face anything." As the sun rose the next morning, the cabin stood strong. The gate was repaired, the garden was alive again, and the neighborhood was united. Tom and Maria sat on their porch, holding hands. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought them something priceless: friends, trust, and a place to call home. Maria smiled. "I'm glad we didn't give up." Tom squeezed her hand. "Me too. This is just the beginning." Outside, the gate stood tall and proud, opening the way to new dreams and a bright future. Months passed since the day Tom and Maria first put up the new gate. What had once been a source of conflict had become a symbol of unity in the small neighborhood. The cabin was no longer just a quiet place in the woods, it was a warm home surrounded by friends. One clear morning, Tom and Maria stood on their porch, looking at the garden they had nurtured together with their neighbors. Bright flowers bloomed, and the air was filled with the gentle hum of bees and birds. The gate swung open easily, welcoming anyone who came. Maria smiled and said, "Remember when this gate was the cause of so much trouble?" Tom laughed softly. "Yes, it feels like a lifetime ago." Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Gray, carrying a basket filled with fresh vegetables from her garden. "I thought you might like some," she said, smiling. "Thank you for everything you've done." Maria accepted the basket warmly. "Thank you for helping and for trusting us." Mrs. Gray nodded. "I learned a lot from you too. Sometimes, I think we forget to see the good in people before judging. Tom said, that happens to everyone. What matters is that we keep trying to understand each other. Mrs. Gray looked around at the blooming garden. You've brought new life here, not just to the cabin, but to the whole neighborhood. As Mrs. Gray left, Tom turned to Maria. I think this is what home really means, where people care about each other. Maria agreed. And where we can grow together, no matter where we come from. Later that day, the neighbors gathered for the first annual neighborhood picnic. The event was filled with laughter, music, and delicious food shared by all. Children played games while the adults talked and planned new projects to improve the area. Tom stood to speak. Thank you all for being part of this community. We've come a long way, and it's because of each one of you that this neighborhood feels like family. Maria smiled as she looked around. She saw faces that once held doubt now shining with friendship. After the picnic, as the sun set behind the trees, Tom and Maria walked hand in hand back to their cabin. The gate closed softly behind them, not as a barrier but as a promise of peace, trust, and belonging. That night, as they sat by the fire, Maria said, I never imagined that something as simple as a gate could change so much. Tom nodded. It's not just about gates or rules. It's about people, about kindness, patience, and understanding. Maria looked at him with love. I'm grateful we faced those challenges together. Tom smiled. Me too. And now, we have a place to call home. As the stars twinkled above, the cabin stood quiet and warm in the woods. Inside, Tom and Maria felt a deep sense of peace. They knew that no matter what came next, they had found their true home, not just in the cabin, but in the hearts of their neighbors. The gate, strong and welcoming, stood as a reminder that even the hardest walls can be opened with trust and friendship.